today is Dr. Evangeline Rand, registered psychologist and creator of A Jasmine Journey. This is a researched story of Dr. Carl Jung's journey to India and Ceylon, 1937 and 38, and a later vision in his life during deep illness when he witnessed what he called something new emerging on the northern coast of India, what used to be known as Orissa, in the Bay of Bengal. Welcome, Dr. Rand.
Thank you.
Dr. Rand, can you tell us, how did you become interested in Jung's travels in India?
Well, I first became interested in Jung's work in 1969. I was a fairly new immigrant to Canada, and we drove from Winnipeg across the prairies to a little ashram in BC called the Yasodara Ashram. At that time it was just a few tents and a few little huts, but we were going to study dreams and yoga. And I stumbled upon a copy of Man and His Symbols that Jung wrote the first chapter to and helped edit. And it had pictures of Indian mythology in it. And I thought, oh, how wonderful. This is something from my life, and my original beginnings in India. So I got into his work really through images from India, but I didn't really realize that for many, many years. So that's how I got interested in Jung's work. It's only in the last relatively short time that I've been interested in my early life in India and reconnecting with women, my age women, that I hadn't seen. One of them I hadn't seen for about 53 years. We were all in India as girls, and I've reconnected with them and been able to talk about our life, because there's very few people actually who knew our life. We were all children of missionaries, not exactly children of the Raj by any means. We're kind of a subspecies within species, if you know what I mean. And it's very, very interesting. And then by coincidence, I met somebody else who grew up in India, a professor of history. Then I gradually started thinking about Jung's journey to India and how little he'd written about it, almost nothing. And then I thought, I think there's something more I need to find out about here. So I started thinking more about it and read everything I possibly could, connected with Jung and India, and then decided that if I went to the library in Zurich and saw some of his original writing in his own hand, maybe I would learn what he'd crossed out or what he'd altered, or, you know, I thought maybe there's something there. And then I started to think, well, no, I think there's something else there. And eventually got hold of this wonderful file of souvenirs from his journey to India. Of course, it was astonishing for me because I recognized all the names, many of which have since changed, place names and so on. And I felt like I was connecting with my life. You know, if you're born in India, you don't automatically think Zurich, Berlin, Munich. They're not the names you grow up with. So finding names I grew up with is, it's so exciting. And then this year I've finally been able to start going through some of my parents' wonderful things, because they went to India in 1936. Very different world at that time, of course. And then I started to see how, for instance, their Christmas card of 1937, New Year card 38, was exactly the time that Jung was in India. And I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, this is part of my life. Wow. You know, I'm an immigrant here in Canada. And like most immigrants, you work like anything to make a life, to create a life, to put down roots for children and, you know, get a career. And it's wonderful to do that. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, well, where did I come from? Oh, what did I leave behind? So it's all part of that, Danita, yes.
Mm-hmm. Right, so you became interested because you saw that your life, and actually in this book, your life and Jung's journey, they have points of intersection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And of course, his father was a pastor and a family of pastors. My father was a Salvation Army missionary officer, and my mother too. So there are, again, many points of intersection. Very fascinating. How did the Christian myth that many of us have inherited, how did it need expanding? How is it expanding? How did it expand? What were we all struggling with? What is going on in human consciousness? Oh yes, it's wonderfully interesting to me. Never ending interest.
And then the other part that makes your book unique is that really nobody, as you said, he didn't write a lot about his travels in India. And this is really the first piece of work going into the world where it is actually addressing his travels in India.
Well, people have addressed his ideas about India and developed an interface of Jung's work. You know, explorations of consciousness, East and West. Of course, many people have. But what I discovered was a map in a little tourist book in the package of wonderful souvenirs, a map, an actual map of his journey, a printed map, and where he added in his own pen the additional pieces of the journey that he went on. So I was just beyond my imagination to find this. It was, well, I think I nearly fell off my chair in the library with excitement, you know.
Yeah. So in other words, you go to the library in Zurich thinking that there's something, and you end up finding a map in Jung's handwriting showing his journey in India.
The editions where he went alone without the whole group. So his editions are in ink in his own hand, a dark blue ink. But the other map is a printed map of where he and the group of scientists that had been invited from England, 100 of them had been invited, plus I think about 11 scientists from other places, and Jung was included in that list, where they came to India, how they traveled. And of course it's exciting to me because well, particularly the line, the railway track from Calcutta down through Madras, Chennai as it's called now, and then Mysore. You know, I know that route. I've travelled it. I travelled it twice a year for many, many years. And then landing in Bombay, not landing, now we would call it, you know, our airplane would land. But of course we came on a steamer, and so landing in Bombay as they did, Ballard Pier, and wow, I mean, that's part of my life.
Exactly. So you could take this little map and bring it to life through just the imagination and your sensory memories of those places and what it would have been like for him to go through in those times.
And the smell of it, you know, the colour of it, the oppressive life of it all. It's, it's heartbreakingly wonderful, that's what I can say. Yeah.
And so these scientists of the day, they were going to India because...
Well, they were invited. There was a celebration, a 25-year Jubilee celebration of the Indian Science Association. I can't actually remember the full name of it. And that was to take place in Calcutta. And the University of Calcutta had first invited Jung to come to India to receive an honorary doctorate of law at the University of Calcutta. But the Jubilee was really a meeting between the British Association for the Development of Science and the Indian Association of Science. They were going to get together to have this wonderful celebration in Calcutta. And so the chaps, and they were all chaps, came on the SS Cathay. The voyage started in Tilbury, which I know very well, in London, just east of London. But Jung got on the boat in Marseille, and then the journey from there, the voyage from there took 2 weeks from Marseille through the Suez Canal to Bombay, a journey I know well. And I can just imagine right now the shifting of light and how the sun's rays affect, how they are different on your eyelashes when you're in the tropics than if you're in northern climate. It's just a shift of everything. Yes, it's been very exciting for me, very enriching, very revivifying.